Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Mayakashi deck profile. So Mayakashi is a very interesting deck that basically uses zombie synchro monsters to climb all the way from 3 to 11 in synchro plays, which is a really interesting concept for a particular deck. It's super fun to be able to play around with and summon some of the coolest artwork in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of your skeletal Mayakashi. I love the way this deck looks, it's super fun, and can be used with a lot of different engines like I'm going to show you guys in this deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name, description, every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting your requested deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. And let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Hajin, the Winged Mayakashi. So the Winged Mayakashi is the main one that you want to see in your hand first, because when this card is normal or special summon, you special summon any Mayakashi monster from your deck except into the copy of itself. You only affect this card once per turn. So the main one that you're going to want to summon out of your deck is your copy of Daki, the Graceful Mayakashi. So Daki, basically what it does is it's a tuner monster, and every single time that you synchro summon, or whenever you summon a Mayakashi monster, you get to immediately special summon this card back from the graveyard. Now that is not once per turn, you just constantly get to revive it. So basically once you synchro summon for 3, she'll revive herself, you go to 5, you revive herself, go to 7, and then revive herself, 9, revive, and then 11, and then you can link summon with the 11 if you want to, or you can leave the 11 on the field depending on your particular field that you have set up. So basically that's pretty much the combo of the way the deck plays, because you're trying to get to this card so fast. We then play 2 copies of Yuki Mizumi, the Ice Mayakashi. This card had bumped down to 2 from the previous build. I was playing it at 3. That if you control a Mayakashi card other than this card, then while this card's in your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card and then send a zombie card from your deck to the graveyard, and you only affect this card once per turn. She's really good, but I always saw her when I needed to, and I also played Unizombie, so I felt like I had enough sending to graveyard cards, so I basically just kept her as a 2-of. We then played 2 copies of Doom King Baller Drought. I kind of wanted to focus more on a Zombie World engine because you guys have seen the mill build, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So this is not focusing on the mill aspect of this deck. I'm doing something a little bit different, and I'm going for a Zombie World aspect of this deck, which you guys requested a lot on the previous build. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different. So basically what this card does is during the standby phase, if there is a face-up field spell, you get special summon this card to your field from your graveyard. And then also whenever a zombie monster effect is activated, you either get to negate the effect or banish one monster on the field or graveyard, which is really good, but you can't activate both the effects in the same chain, and you can activate both of the effects in the same turn, but it's just an overall really good effect. We then play a single copy of Necro World Banshee. You can banish this card from the graveyard or the field to special summon, or excuse me, to place a copy of Zombie World directly from your hand or deck to activate it from your hand or deck, which is really good. You play 2 copies of Glow Up Bloom. Glow Up Bloom basically special summons out your copy of Doom King Baller Drought extremely fast, because it has the ability that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard to add a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand. But if you control Zombie World, you get to special summon the zombie instead, which is really good for this particular deck. I then play a single copy of Jackabolin. Jackabolin is really amazing because you can discard a card from your hand that is a zombie to special summon this card from your hand, and then during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you get to target a zombie monster in either player's grave and special summon that target but banish this card, which is pretty cool to be able to just get you that monster. You banish it until the end phase, so it kind of just runs away, but you get to take a card from the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Vampire Fraulein. Vampire Fraulein is really good because it can boost up your monsters, because whenever a zombie monster is involved in a battle, you special summon this card to your field, and then you can pay life points in increments of 100 all the way up to 3,000 to be able to make that zombie monster gain attack equal to the amount that you paid, which is pretty good. It also gives you another body on field, which is really nice. We then play 2 copies of Mizuki. You can banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a zombie back from the graveyard, which is really nice. 1 copy of Gozuki. The Gozuki, during the main phase, you can send a zombie from your deck to the graveyard, which is pretty good. 1 copy of Spirit Master. Spirit Master is amazing in this deck, because when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a Shiranui monster in your hand or graveyard, which we do actually play 2 Shiranuis other than this, but the main effect that you're going to be using with this card is with Swallow Slash. because it's going to get you an additional pop, because when you banish this card off a Swallow Slash from the deck, you get to target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it, which gets you basically 3 pops for the cost of 2, which is really cool, and it gets you an extra card out of the deck. And then we play 2 copies of Shiranui Solitaire, because this card can get your tuners out of the deck, which your main 3 tuners that you're going to be special summoning is your copies of your Unizombie. Now, the reason you play 2 and 3 is because you really want to see Unizombie, but 2 and 3 has been my favorite number with this particular build, so it's worked out the most for me like this. And what Unizombie does is it's single-handedly the most important card in the entire deck, in any zombie deck, so you guys need to memorize what this card does. It lets you target one face-up monster on the field, discard a card from your hand if you do increase that monster's level by 1, and you can also send a zombie monster from the deck to the graveyard, and then increase a zombie on your side of the field by 1 level as well. But if you do this effect, then for the rest of the turn you can't attack except for with zombie monsters, which is fine, because if we're playing Zombie World, we're totally fine. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of 1-for-1, because the 1-for-1 gets us to our Winged Mayakashi extremely fast. It's just an overall really good card. Also, sending zombies from your hand to the graveyard never hurts. 1 copy of Foolish Burial, because it sends the exact zombie you need to the graveyard when you need it. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because it revives out your zombies out of the graveyard, which is super helpful. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Polymerization is ridiculous in this deck, because Super Polymerization just gets you so many plays, because you're going to be able to use your opponent's monsters as material to fusion summon against them, which is just ridiculously good. I love that effect, to be able to use my opponent's monsters against them with stuff like Starving Venom Fusion Dragon and my copy of the Dragon Necker Nether Soul. Now, you do have to keep in mind there is a trap card in the deck that does kind of interact really weird with this card, so you have to keep that in mind, and I will get to that in just a minute. We then play 3 copies of Mayakashi Return. So Mayakashi Return has the ability that you get to take any Mayakashi from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. So basically you have 7 ways to get your copy of the Winged Mayakashi. So it's really easy to actually get that card in your hand to then start climbing into your plays. We then play 3 copies of Zombie World, because you can pretty much win off just using the main deck and Zombie World, which is really, really amazing. And this card, what it does is it makes all monsters on the field and in the graveyard zombies, and neither player contributes summon monsters except zombies. And then that's pretty much it for the spells. So let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a total of 5 traps in this deck, which is 2 copies of Swallow Slash and then 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. So this is what the interaction that I was going to mention, you guys. Rivalry of Warlords interacts very weirdly with Zombie World and interacts very weirdly with Super Polymerization, which is something I do want to go ahead and bring up to you guys so you do know this when you start playing. So what this basically interaction is your Super Poly is to get rid of dark monsters and to get rid of your opponent's monsters when you don't have Rivalry of Warlords. Because when you have Rivalry of Warlords on the field, neither player can summon monsters except for zombies, because you're always going to call zombies. But since you have in your extra deck, your 2 Super Poly targets are actually dragon monsters, unfortunately, and they're the only 2 monsters that you can really use as Super Poly targets in this deck. It won't work under Super Polymerization. So if you have these 2, you're fine to be able to Super Poly your opponent, but if you do add that copy of Rivalry on the field with Super Polymerization, you won't be able to Super Poly away their monsters, which is a little unfortunate unless that's the only monster you are going to summon onto your side of the field is that particular Super Poly target. So do keep that in mind as you play this deck. So Rivalry of Warlords, don't get me wrong, is an extremely powerful card. It does lock your opponent down when you have Zombie World on the field, because then only your opponent, if they already control a monster on their field, and then they can't summon from their hand unless they're also playing zombies, because they can't summon anything but zombies as long as they control a monster on the field, because this makes that monster that they currently control a zombie, because you always call zombie with this card. The Swallow Slash basically is Icarus Attack. If you guys don't remember that card, what it does, you tribute a zombie monster on the field, target 2 zombie or target 2 cards on the field and destroy them, and then banish a Shiranui monster from the deck, which is your Spirit Master, which gives you the 3rd pop. So basically this is a tribute a zombie, send a Spirit Master from deck, and then pop an additional a card on the field, so you get to 3 pops on this card, which is really good. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of the Skeletal Mayakashi. This card is really, really, really good. It's a 3300 beat stick, and it has the ability that if a Link monster is in your possession, is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, and this card's in the graveyard, you can banish one other zombie monster from the graveyard if you do special summon this card. And if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can activate this effect. This face-up card is unaffected by other card effects at all this turn, which which is really, really cool. We then play 2 copies of the Yugioh, the Graceful Mayakashi. This card is also very interesting that if a level 11 synchro monster or if a synchro monster in your possession whose original level is 11 is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, you can banish one of their zombie monster from your graveyard if you do special summon it. And if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. We then play 2 copies of the Winged Mayakashi Tengu. This card is also kind of neat. You basically climb up with them as they get destroyed, that if this one gets destroyed, you can special summon this one. If this one gets destroyed, then you special summon this one, which is kind of neat from the graveyard. So you want to run through your copies really quickly to go all the way up into the Link monster ASAP, so you can then revive them out of the graveyard. So what this card does is if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target spell or trap on the field and destroy them. We play 2 copies of the Poisonous Mayakashi, that if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can make each player send the top 3 cards of the deck to the graveyard. And then 3 copies of the Wheeled Mayakashi as well, or 2 copies of the Wheeled Mayakashi. You basically play 2 each of the Synchro monsters, because you want to be able to climb the ladder at least twice. And what this card does is if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, activate this effect. This turn your opponent's monster or your monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, which is pretty good because it basically protects your monsters from being destroyed by battle. We then play a single copy of Yugioh, the Ice Mayakashi. I'm just playing a single copy of this card because I'm also playing the Link 4. And what this card does is you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. And when this card points to a Synchro monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. And if a Synchro monster, your Synchro Summon monster in your possession is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, while this card's on the field, then you can target 1 face-up monster on the field and its attack becomes half its current original attack and events, which is pretty good. We then play her upgraded version, which is Yugioh, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi, which is a very interesting card. You can only control 1 of her and you negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. And if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, then you get to target 1 other face-up monster on the field and change its attack to 0, which is a really good effect. And if you do, negate its effects as well, which is super, super nice. We play the same copy of Vampire Sucker because sometimes you need the suck, and it works really well with Zombie World. And then we play 2 super poly targets, which is Dragon Necro Nether Soul, and a single copy of Starving Venom. Basically, Dragon Necro Nether Soul, when it attacks a monster, you're going to generate a token. That opponent's monster is going to go to 0, and you're going to get a token with its original attack level. And it's basically going to be able to attack into that monster that dropped to 0 because this card cannot destroy anything by battle. And then the Starving Venom is if your opponent has 2 dark monsters on the field, then you can summon this with Super Poly. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a super fun deck to play around with, and it's pretty budget to be able to play with the Mayakashi package. Now, I know the Zombie World engine is a little bit more expensive because they really do need to reprint it soon. Hopefully, they do reprint the Zombie World package eventually. But other than that, it's a really fun deck to be able to play. And I hope you guys did enjoy it. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.